Welcome to Dangerous Games by T.K. Leigh, a standalone second-chance romance that will tug at your heartstrings and leave you breathless. This is the story of two souls torn apart by tragedy, only to collide years later in a twist of fate neither expected. As past wounds resurface and old sparks reignite, the line between love and pain becomes dangerously thin, with secrets threatening to unravel everything and emotions running high. They must decide, can love survive the truth, or is history doomed to repeat itself? Dangerous Games isn't just a romance, it's a powerful exploration of loss, redemption, and the courage it takes to open your heart when everything inside you says, run. One love, one mistake, one more chance. Press play and discover why some games are worth risking everything. Chapter 1. One of my earliest memories is T-hat of my parents kissing. It may not sound like a poignant or remarkable event, considering they were married and kissed several times a day, but this particular kiss has always stayed with me. I couldn't have been more than 3 years old. My father had a conference to attend in Florida, so my mother decided we'd all go. One day, when my father walked into the hotel room after a day of seminars, he kissed my mother, practically stealing her breath. When he pulled back, she murmured, "Welcome home." At the time, I thought it odd. We weren't home. This was just a hotel room we were staying in for a few nights. When I asked my mother, she told me something I'll never forget. Home isn't a place, it's a feeling. And when I'm with your father, I'm home. Since then, I've searched for that feeling of home, desperate to experience that same belonging my mother did every time she peered into my father's eyes. I never thought I'd find it where I did. A blast of wind whips my hair in front of my face. I smooth it behind my ear as I stare at the awning of a lounge near Bryant Park. Everything about it appears trendy and pretentious. I shouldn't be surprised this is the type of place Jesse requested I meet him. He was never the kind of person to head to a neighborhood dive bar for a beer. I could easily turn around, tell him something came up at the hospital and I had to work overtime. But there was something that urged me to pick up my cell when I saw his name flash on my caller ID. Something in his voice that made me agree to his request. Guilt, remorse, desperation. I'm not sure if it's on my part or his. Maybe both. When Jesse and I dated, then were engaged, he had a commanding presence. It may have seemed that way because his nearly 23 years felt mature next to my almost 19. He had this confidence that drew me to him, making me forget about everyone else who came before him. Almost everyone else. Regardless, in those few years we were together, he'd never sounded so lost, so uncertain as he did on the phone. Whatever he needs to talk to me about must be important if he called after not having so much as sent a text or email in the past 9 years. I worry the secret I have been keeping is about to come out in a spectacular fashion. Inhaling a calming breath, I smooth my hands over my wool coat, descending the short flight of stairs into the basement lounge on shaky legs. A wall of warmth assaults me the instant I step into the darkened room. It's not a typical Manhattan bar, big, noisy, overcrowded. This place is small, maybe enough seats for 30 people between the short bar counter and lush chairs. There's no loud music being piped in. Instead, ambient jazz sounds in the background. "Do you have a reservation?" a petite blonde in a black dress asks as I attempt to unwrap my scarf. A few beads of sweat forming on the back of my neck, most likely from a combination of nerves and the drastic change in temperature from the frigid air outside. "Actually, I'm meeting Izzy." I fling my gaze in the direction of that voice, my breath hitching when I see a man I haven't seen in nearly a decade, a man I'd hoped to never see again. Not because he'd sought comfort in another woman's arms before I'd officially returned his ring, but because I fear what he'll notice in my eyes. Jesse. I feel like I'm staring at a living memory. The act of peering into his dark orbs returning me to a time in my life when seeing him was an everyday occurrence. For over 2 years, it was. Not a single strand of his chestnut hair is out of place. His jawline clean-shaven, making me think he probably has a weekly appointment with his barber. His tall, slender physique looks borderline intimidating in an impeccably tailored three-piece suit. Jesse always was the type to dress well, even when he was younger. "Dress for the job you want, not the one you have," he'd say. Now, based on what I know, he has the job he always wanted, managing his brother's rising music career. "Hey," he scrapes a hand through his hair. "I'm glad you're here. It really..." He exhales a shaky breath. "You had every reason not to, but I'm grateful you agreed to meet me." I press my lips into a tight line, not responding. How can I fear the second I open my mouth, the truth will fall from me like an avalanche. The unease about his invitation has been eating me up to the point I've barely slept since I received his phone call. Anyone else in my position wouldn't have agreed, would have distanced themselves. But curiosity got the better of me, as did my compassion, despite our past. This is a man I once imagined spending the rest of my life with. A man I once loved. One I probably always will. "Can I take your jacket?" Miss the hostess asks, cutting through my thoughts. "Thank you." I remove my scarf and gloves before unbuttoning my coat. As I shrug out of it, Jesse reacts quickly, helping me, as he always did. I offer him an appreciative smile. When he takes in the dress I selected for tonight, his eyes flare. It's a far cry from the jeans and t-shirts I wore every day of my undergraduate career. The last time he saw me, I was a girl, only a few weeks past my 21st birthday. A lot can change in that time. "Enjoying the show," I retort playfully, crossing my arms in front of my chest, which only serves to accentuate my cleavage that's already prominently on display, thanks to the plunging neckline of the sleek red dress. Sorry. You look... Wow." My cheeks heat. Regardless of everything that transpired between us, the fact he still finds me beautiful is a much-needed confidence boost after having recently celebrated my 30th birthday. "This way." He places his hand on the small of my back, leading me toward a secluded table in a darkened corner. When I slip into the lounge chair, he ensures I'm comfortable before taking his seat across from me. "What would you like to drink?" He signals for a server. "I'm assuming you've outgrown jungle juice and kamikaze shots." My stomach roils at the mere mention. "You assume correctly. I can't even think about triple sec without wanting to hurl." Duly noted. There's a twinkle in his eye I never noticed before. He's always been charming and charismatic. It was what attracted me to him all those years ago. But now it's more pronounced, his maturity accentuating all the qualities I once appreciated. "What can I get you?" a tall redhead in a tight-fitting dress asks, placing a cocktail napkin in front of me. "Dry martini, please." "Certainly." She turns her attention to Jesse. "Another club soda." With a curt nod, he responds, "Please." "Of course." I watch as she retreats, then turn back to him. "No jungle juice for you, either." "Nah, I'm not much of a drinker these days. At least not when I need to keep a clear head." I swallow hard. "And what do you need to have a clear head for?" My voice trembles, my mouth growing dry as a chill trickles down my spine. He brushes the pad of his thumb the length of his bottom lip. His contemplative stare causes goosebumps to prickle my skin, a sinking sensation settling deep in my stomach. Obviously, I didn't call to reminisce about the past. His eyes gleam with amusement. I figured as much. I run my clammy hands along the skirt of my dress, fidgeting with the hem in a desperate need to do something with my hands. I didn't see any other option. He narrows his gaze on me, much like my father did when he caught me sneaking in after curfew during high school. But back then, I was simply having innocent fun with friends. This secret isn't innocent, especially where Jesse's concerned. "Here you go." Our server interrupts, placing a martini glass in front of me and a small tumbler filled with a clear, effervescent liquid in front of Jesse. As anxious as I am to get on with this conversation, I welcome the reprieve, or stay of execution. "Thank you," Jesse says. The waitress nods. "Holler if you need anything else." Once we're alone again, he lifts his glass to making amends. He raises his brow in expectation, hand trembling. I reach for my drink, bringing it toward his. To making amends. I repeat, but amends for what? After we've both taken a sip of our respective beverages, he returns his glass to the table, clearing his throat. I want to start by thanking you for coming. I realize I was cryptic over the phone. That's a gross understatement. I give him a coy smile, masking my nerves. I can't help but think that was intentional, so I'd have no choice but to show up to find out what you wanted. Can you blame me if I were in your shoes? I'd be suspicious if my ex called out of the blue after 8 years. 9. I correct. Right. He hangs his head. 9 years. He blows out a laugh, his eyes glistening with nostalgia. In some respects, it doesn't seem possible that much time could have passed. In others, it does. He slowly lifts his gaze to mine. The remorse I see within is enough to bring me to my knees, my guilt festering even more, squeezing my lungs and tugging at my heart. Izzy. He reaches across the table, grasping my hand in his. He looks down as he toys with the barren ring finger where the symbol of his devotion once sat. I kept it. Kept what? Your ring. I could have sold it. Hell. The jeweler I went to had a buyback program the saleswoman was keen to make me aware of, more so when she learned how young you were. He laughs slightly, still caressing my skin. But I couldn't, even though I knew selling that ring would help pay off some of my student loans. Why didn't you? He drops his hold on me, taking a sip of his club soda. It didn't seem right. A part of me hoped you'd come back, but the other part knew that would never happen. Not after I betrayed you. My stomach sours at the regret laced around every syllable, every breath, every small smile. You didn't betray me. I pull the olive from my martini and bite it off the cocktail stick. I couldn't expect you to remain faithful when I gave you every indication that I was done. Like Ross would say, we were on a break. His mouth kicks up into the same smirk that stole my heart once upon a time. Still a friend's fanatic. Some things will never change. He peers at me thoughtfully. That's actually comforting. Whenever I scroll through the channels and see Friends is on, I think of you. But our situation was a little different than Ross and Rachel's break. How so? He nods at my left hand. You were still wearing my ring, due to my insistence. If I wanted you to keep it so badly, why would I hurt you like I did? I hide my hand under the table. I wish I had the courage to tell him I hadn't been wearing it. Not in private anyway. Around my friends and family, I made sure to keep it on, not wanting to admit they were right, that we were too young to get engaged. At least I was. Jesse was always mature beyond his years. I played a part in what happened, too. A big part. I ignored your calls, even after Asher. I trail off, heat washing over my complexion at the mention of Jesse's older brother. It's the first time either of us has brought him up. Can he hear the affection in the simple way my mouth caresses his name? Can he see the longing in my expression? Can he feel the heartbreak from across the table, clearing my throat? I continue, lowering my voice. Even after Asher reached out and told me you were in a bad place, begging me to talk to you, I didn't. We'd agreed to take a break from each other while you were home for Christmas. I didn't expect you to pick up the phone and call me every day like you usually did when we were apart, especially after that fight. I stare into the distance, recalling the argument that started the storm to follow. It was my last night up in Boston before I was to head home to Connecticut for my Christmas break from college. I wanted to see Asher's band perform at a local club. Jesse wanted a quiet night at home. At the time, I saw his insistence we stay home as a way to control my behavior. It was ridiculous and irrational. Further proof we weren't ready to be married. My friends warned me things would change once we were married. No more nights out, no more hanging out with friends. All my time would be devoted to Jesse. In essence, this argument wasn't about seeing Asher's band. It was about my fear regarding the upcoming changes. My fear of Jesse pushing me away after he finally realized I wasn't the person he thought I was. So, in typical Izzy fashion, instead of trying to work things out, I ran. Or at least tried to. But Jesse wouldn't let me, begged me to take time to think it over. It was almost like he knew. I'm not asking you to forgive me for my lapse of judgment. His words force my attention back to him. I attempt to argue once more, but he holds up his free hand, interrupting me. Do you have any idea how many times my finger hovered over your contact in my cell, only to chicken out at the last minute? His tone grows impassioned. God, Izzy, so many times. I've wanted to apologize for years, tell you how ashamed I am of what I put you through, tell you you have nothing to apologize for, although I didn't make him believe so at the time. It was easier to use his supposed infidelity as the catalyst for our breakup instead of admitting the truth to anyone, including myself. Yes, I do. Same Jesse York. Still always has to have the last word. Same Isabella Nolan. Still always trying to see the good in everyone, even someone who doesn't deserve it. Not after what I did. As much as I doubt I'll ever be able to tell Jesse the real reason I walked away. I hate the idea of him shouldering the blame that seems to still eat at him. 50-50 split, I offer with a smile. He furrows his brow, seemingly confused by my statement. Then realization kicks in, as I knew it would. Whenever we had a disagreement, we'd inevitably apologize, both wanting to bear the majority of the blame for the argument. Although back then, it was usually over my family's love of the Mets and his love of the Red Sox. I could never bring up the year 1986 without it igniting intense emotions. That was the year the Red Sox got so close to winning the World Series, until an error allowed the Mets to take it. Regardless of the reason for the fight, we always agreed to share the blame equally. It was what made our relationship work so well, until it didn't. Smiling, he extends his hand toward me. 50-50 split, he repeats. I allow him to shake my hand, as we always did to solidify our agreement. I'm about to make a crack about Billy Buckner when he cuts me off. I know where you're going, and I don't want to hear it. It's still a bit of a sore spot, even though the curse is broken. A hint of his Boston accent shines through in his words. I laugh, any lingering unease melting off as I joke with him, like we used to. We always were good friends. I often thought we were better as friends than as a couple. I didn't think I'd ever get to hear that again. He remarks thoughtfully. What your laugh? He smiles a pained smile. Still as beautiful as you are. I lower my eyes. No other guy I'd dated ever admitted their feelings so unabashedly. With Jesse, there were no games, no questioning where he stood. After what I've done, I don't feel like I deserve his compliment. You must be wondering why I called, he says after a beat. It wasn't to apologize, I ask timidly. Well, yes and no. No. A knot forms in my stomach, my trepidation increasing with each silent second. Every sound is heightened, the clink of ice against glass, the occasional chuckle, the melody of Ella Fitzgerald's voice as she sings about how much she loves the city of Manhattan. A laugh rips from his throat. It's not filled with humor, but not quite sarcastic either. It heightens my anxiety even more. I never thought I'd reach a point where I'd have this conversation with you. What conversation? My words are barely audible, a weight bearing down on my chest. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm left with no choice. He trails off. My heartbeat echoes in my ears, the hairs on my nape standing on end. He knows. He must. Maybe his apology was a front. A way to lull me into a false sense of security before he pounces, forcing me to reveal the secret I knew I wouldn't be able to keep forever. I wonder if this is how condemned prisoners feel when they're led to the execution chamber and are asked if they'd like to make one final statement. No wonder many don't. What is there to say? The people watching have already made up their minds. Nothing the accused says will change their opinion, just like nothing I say to Jesse will lessen the sting of my actions. All I can do is beg for forgiveness. It's about Asher. I can explain. I interject. It didn't. He's blocked. He interrupts before I can incriminate myself. Stilling. I blink. Once. Twice. Allowing my brain to process his statement. Blocked. He's missed the past 3 deadlines. I don't know how much time the label's willing to give him. This next album can make or break his career, can turn him from a one-hit wonder into a household name. Well, even more a household name than he's already become, considering you can't turn on the radio without hearing Amante. I swipe up my martini glass, gulping down the liquid. What do I have to do with any of this? On a long sigh, he reaches into the inner pocket of his suit. He tosses a folded piece of paper onto the table. But it's not just any folded piece of paper. It's folded into the shape of an origami dove, something Asher and I always did as our way of apologizing after we'd gotten into an argument. Jesse and I had the 50-50 split. Asher and I had origami doves. I look at the paper, able to make out a music staff and notes scratched on it. Most likely discarded versions of a song Asher's trying to find. I'm not sure Every song he's written lately ends up as an origami dove. I know this was a thing between you guys. I didn't realize you two were still in touch. We're not. A sour taste fills my mouth. It's not a complete lie, but not forthcoming, either. Then why is he making these damn origami doves? He's refused to give me answers, so I figured I had no choice but to go to the source. How should I know I peer into eyes that are borderline accusatory? Maybe he's feeling a bit nostalgic. Wishes things could return to the way they were before he had all this pressure on him. He squints, seemingly toiling over this explanation for validity. My mouth grows dry and I take another large sip of my drink, but nothing settles my nerves at the prospect of Jesse putting the pieces together. Then his shoulders fall. I remember how you guys would stay up all night working on music. I guess that was one of the things I was always jealous about. He laughs slightly. I hated the mere thought of him stealing you away, although he'd never do that. But all I saw was my brother and girlfriend sharing a bond I'd never have with either of you. I've never exactly been musically inclined. You don't say. I tease in an attempt to lighten the mood. While Jesse's always had a great ear for music, he couldn't hold a tune if his life depended on it. Growing frustrated whenever I tried to teach him the basics of playing the piano or guitar. It's all further proof that he and his brother truly are complete opposites. Whatever Jesse excelled at, Asher struggled with, and vice versa. Together, though, they're a force to be reckoned with. Which is why Asher's rise to stardom over the past year has been rapid. He writes addictive songs and performs them with a soulful presence you can't help but be drawn to. As his manager, Jesse knows how to market his sex appeal and beautiful music to the masses. As much as I've tried to avoid everything to do with both Asher and Jesse York, it's grown increasingly impossible. Particularly once Asher's first album dropped and he made the rounds on the talk show circuit. Whenever I caught him on TV, I couldn't help but stop and listen to him tell the story of how he got his big break, how he was about to throw in the towel when he received the phone call that changed his life. One of the members of Fallen Grace, the biggest boy band around today, had seen Asher perform at a local club. After playing Asher's stuff for the rest of the band, they approached him with a proposition. They'd been searching for a newer, less boy band-esque sound, and Asher had exactly what they'd been looking for. When they asked him to write the songs for their new album, Asher agreed, thinking it would be his only claim to fame. But once the band went public with the brains behind Fallen Grace 2.0, as they'd referred to it, record labels knocked down his door, begging for him to sign with them. In a matter of months, Asher went from nearly giving up on a music career to having all the major labels fighting over him. This Is Why I Need You is. All the songs Asher released on the last album were ones he'd written when you were in the picture. Trust me, I wouldn't be here if it weren't necessary. I get the feeling all these damn doves are a sign. An SOS, so to speak. SOS. What are you talking about? He drags his fingers through his perfectly groomed hair, tugging at it, It's clear whatever's blocking Asher plagues Jesse. 2. Asher plans to head up north in a few weeks to work on the new album, to Graham's lake house, where he wrote so many of his old songs, where you helped him write so many of his old songs. I want you to hang out with him, like you used to. My face heats, limbs jittery as I listen to Jesse's proposal that I go up to the lake house and spend time with Asher. If he knew the truth, he'd be singing a different tune. I didn't do anything. I'm sure if he goes up there on his own, he'll find that inspiration. I have commitments here. I can't ignore those. We've tried that, but it didn't work. We recreated everything. Except there was one thing missing. You. I'm about to protest, but he interrupts. I understand I'm asking a lot of you, considering our past. I'm sure the last thing you want to do is hang out with your ex's brother at his grandmother's lake house in the dead of winter. I remain straight-faced, not wanting him to read between the lines of my expression. That's why I'm willing to compensate you for your time. He reaches into the messenger bag at his feet, withdrawing several papers and extending them toward me. What's this, I ask, my eyes scanning the pages, which could be written in a foreign language as far as I'm concerned, a standard royalty distribution arrangement. I want to buy some of your time. I'm not sure You'll get points on the album. Points? Yes. In layman's terms, a point is a royalty percentage. I'll give you 2 points, or 2% of every album sold. Same goes for streaming royalties. Taking the numbers from his debut album, that would have already netted you nearly 50 grand. My eyes widen as I choke on my own saliva. 50 grand, I knew Asher was doing well for himself. He's been lauded as the next John Mayer, albeit with a more soulful and bluesy vibe. I didn't realize he's already become the next John Mayer. If 2% of sales equals 50 grand in 6 months, I can't imagine the money Asher is pulling in. And early projections look like this upcoming album will easily be 4 times that, possibly more. My jaw drops. So you're offering me potentially 200 grand just to spend time with Asher? More or less. I blink, struggling to wrap my head around this. This is an incredible offer. But there's more. An extra incentive. Like I mentioned, we're past deadline here. This album was supposed to come out at the beginning of this year in order to help with notoriously low first quarter sales. The label gave us an extension, but it needs to drop in the second quarter. So I'm willing to offer you an additional 20 grand, payable at the end of his time up north, contingent on him writing a full album worth of songs by the time he's set to go into the recording studio. And when is that March 1st? It's already the middle of January. Jesse, you want me to find some way of inspiring him to write a dozen or so songs in a little more than a month? He shrugs. He's done it before when you were around. I shake my head. It's been years. I don't. His hand covers mine, squeezing. Please, Izzy. His words are laced with desperation. I'm out of options. I need you. Asher needs you. This is crazy. What am I supposed to do? Whatever it takes. Within reason. Of course, he adds quickly. I'm not paying you to sleep with him like some managers hire girls to spark their clients' inspiration. Not that Asher would do that anyway. Not with our past. Of course not, I say with a tight-lipped smile, doing my best to keep my expression neutral. I feel his eyes skate over my face, the seconds seeming to stretch. Just do whatever you used to do whenever you guys burned the proverbial midnight oil. That's what I'm trying to recreate here. Those nights you both stayed up until all hours, which always seemed to result in him writing yet another song. I focus on the papers, the words bleeding into each other. This entire scenario seems absurd. The last thing I expected when I agreed to meet him was this kind of proposition. But no amount of money would make me agree to this proposition. I close the royalty agreement and push it back toward him. I don't think it's a good idea. Can't you hire some songwriters to compose the songs for the album I tried? Asher refused, said he's a songwriter first, performer second. It was part of the deal he made with the label. only his material. He'd sooner give it all up before performing someone else's song because some fuckhead in a suit told him to. His words, not mine. He rolls his eyes. According to Asher, I'd probably fit into that fuckhead in a suit category. I laugh, able to picture Asher saying those precise words. Please, Jesse implores again, his voice turning serious. At this point, I'm out of options. And time. If this album doesn't drop soon, Asher's career will be over. He'll lose everything. His contract prohibits him from being picked up by another label or releasing independently for 2 years. By that time, he'll no longer be current. So if he doesn't release this album, it's all over. He nods. Most likely. This industry is cutthroat enough as it is. If he disappears for 2 years, he'll lose all his forward momentum. He'll be starting from scratch. You know how much he wants this. How long this has been his dream. I do. Listen. Jesse pushes out of his chair and stands, leaving the contract with me. Retrieving his wallet, he throws several bills down, enough to cover our drinks and a rather generous tip. Don't do it for me. Do it for Asher. He exhales a long breath. Just look over the agreement and take some time to think about it. He cracks a small smile. But not too much. Time is at a premium. Can you promise you'll do that? That you'll think about it? I exhale a long breath. Okay. Thank you. He turns, and I watch him make his way through the lounge. Everything about his stride and the way he carries himself confident and mature. Hey, Jesse, I call out before he can disappear. Stopping. He glances over his shoulder with an arched brow. You were good to me. Just wanted you to know that. A smile tugs on his mouth. Thanks. I needed to hear that. Then he continues out of the bar, leaving me alone to consider his proposal. But there is nothing to consider. I can't bring myself to fall into Asher's world, not after I made the mistake of sleeping with him a year ago. Chapter 2. 1 year ago. Well, thank God T-Hat-S over. Chloe spun on her heels, hurrying toward the bank of elevators. As if it were a race. I couldn't blame her. After the past several days of being stuck at the bachelorette party that never ended, I wanted to get as far away from the clanging bells of slot machines, too. I never thought I would have been the type of person to be in Las Vegas for a bachelorette party. Certainly no one within my tight-knit circle of friends had any desire to celebrate their upcoming nuptials with such a cliché and overdone event. But that was before I'd received a phone call out of the blue from my childhood friend, Hannah. I'd all but forgotten about the adolescent pact Chloe and I had made with her to be in each other's bridal parties if the day should ever arrive. Despite having grown apart from Hannah since then, Chloe and I honored our word and hopped on a plane bound for the 10th circle of hell. I swear, if one more guy approaches me thinking I'm a prostitute because my hair's a different shade, I'm going to lose it. I'm not the first person to color my hair gray and lilac, for crying out loud. She gestured to her wavy locks that fell to her mid-back. I must admit, it took me a while to get used to the color. Knowing I'd never be so daring as to change my hair to such a unique tone. But that was Chloe, bold and a bit reckless. Plus, her natural shade of blonde made it easier to do something like that. There wasn't much I could do with my nearly jet black hair. As far as our appearance went, Chloe and I were as opposite as could be. She was short and petite, the picture of an all-American girl, aside from her choice in hair color. I was on the taller side with curves and olive-toned skin, thanks to my Latina heritage. You know how this place can be. I responded when I caught up to her. It's bachelorette party central. You saw how the girls behaved. They're away from home and responsibility, so they throw common sense out the window and flirt with anything with a pulse. Same goes for the men here for bachelor parties. And, as we all know, men aren't nearly as intelligent as women, so they say and do even dumber things. Her laughter filled the elevator vestibule, overpowering the abrasive noise of the casino. You've got that right. When a car arrived, she slung her arm over my shoulders, which proved slightly difficult due to our height difference. Her 5'2" to my 5'7", But we managed, like always. Lobby tomorrow at 11. I arched a brow at Chloe when the elevator stopped on my floor. Or maybe I should tell you 10:30 so you'll be on time. She playfully jabbed me in the side. Don't worry, I'll be there. There's no way in hell I'm missing my flight out of this godforsaken town. Good. Or I'm leaving without you. Because there's no way in hell I'm missing my flight out of this godforsaken town. Good night. Izzy, she sang, pushing me out of the car before the doors closed on me. Night, Chloe. I called back as I made my way toward my room. Once inside, I took a minute to relish in the tranquility. My ears still rang from the constant barrage of noise in the casino. But other than a faint conversation I could make out from the room next door, it was peaceful. The whirring of the air conditioner the only sound. An urgent need to wash off the remnants of tonight's festivities, namely the showgirl lessons that came complete with full makeup, overtook me, and I headed for the bathroom, starting the shower. After a few minutes of rigorously scrubbing my face, I felt like myself again. Not this dress-wearing, club-going girl I'd been the past few days. Emerging from the bathroom, I glanced at the clock to see it was just after 11. I should have packed and gotten some sleep, but I wasn't even close to being tired. As a nurse, I typically worked the night shift, since I'd stayed out until the early hours of the morning all weekend. My body had remained on that schedule. So, instead of throwing on some pajamas, I slid on a pair of jeans and a black top, then left my room to explore the Vegas nightlife on my own, and hopefully find a low-key bar. After a weekend of nothing but overpriced, pretentious clubs, I needed a simple bar and a good beer. Most other women my age probably wouldn't want to venture off on their own at night in Vegas, but I wasn't most women. I liked being alone, liked being able to do what I wanted when I wanted, liked not having to depend on anyone else for my own happiness. That was the benefit of being an only child. An adopted only child. I became fiercely independent at an early age. I meandered along the casino floor, the tables overflowing with people trying their hand at blackjack, poker, or roulette, probably gambling away their life savings in the hopes of winning big. Cocktail waitresses in skin-tight dresses that barely covered their ass carried trays holding drinks. Despite having one of the top air filtration systems available, a thin layer of smoke seemed to fill the space, the stench of nicotine permanently ingrained in my nostrils. It was going to take days to get the stink out of my hair once I got home. As I wandered in search of a place where I could grab a decent beer, the sound of a live band cut through. A nice change from the typical thump of club music they blared all hours of the day. I looked in its direction, spying what appeared to be an Irish pub. I grinned at the familiarity. My mother would have admonished me for going to an Irish pub while in Vegas, considering I lived in New York and couldn't trip without falling on yet another bar just like this one. That was probably what called me to this place. It reminded me of home. I stepped inside, everything about my surroundings seeming to go against what Vegas stood for. Yes, it was still a bar and the music was loud, but it wasn't ostentatious. Wasn't filled with women wearing as little clothing as they could get away with on the prowl for some poor schmuck to buy them overpriced drinks for the night. Wasn't crawling with men dressed in suits who bathed in far too much cologne. I walked toward a long bar that sat along the wall and found a vacant stool. My eyes were drawn to the ceiling. Dozens of bills of every currency pinned to it. A bartender approached and took my order for a beer, returning with a pint within seconds. I took a sip of the hoppy ale, exhaling at the flavor that seemed so foreign after the past few nights of only consuming mixed, saccharine drinks. This was exactly what I needed to feel normal again. I surveyed the darkened space, nothing flashy or unique about it, just like every other bar I'd been to in my adult life. The lounge was filled with heavy wood tables, patrons enjoying a variety of drinks and bar food while they listened to live music. A large crowd filled the area in front of the stage, dancing to the band as they covered a Coldplay song. They were pretty good, much better than some of the artists getting airtime on the radio these days. I'd take rock music any day over the latest auto-tuned boy band who wouldn't know how to hold a guitar if their life depended on it. The song ended and applause broke out, a few girls cheering and clapping enthusiastically. Deja vu washed over me, like I'd been here before. In a way, I'd once been one of those exuberant fans cheering for the local band, hoping they'd someday make it big. But that was a lifetime ago. Thanks all. The lead singer's voice carried over the loud chatter and clanging of ice against glass. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do, we have a special guest who's agreed to get up on stage with us tonight. Remember this name, folks, because in the next few months, you won't be able to turn on your radios without hearing his music. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Asher York. A gasp escaped, my eyes darting toward the stage. I froze, my brain unable to tell my lungs to breathe, my heart to beat, my body to move. All I heard was that name. It couldn't be him, could it? How I'd never been great at statistics. But the likelihood of the two of us being in the same bar in Las Vegas had to be, 1 in a million, a billion? It had to be someone else with the same name. Someone else who was also a musician. Someone else who was 6'2", with dark hair and a smile that could melt panties. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was still stuck in the memories of my college days when my roommate and I would go to whatever club Asher's band was playing and dance the night away. That must have been it. The reality of being in the same room as him seemed so far out of the realm of possibilities, especially considering the last I knew. He was a music teacher in the suburbs of Boston, playing the occasional gig on the weekends. Then again, the last time I had spoken to him was 8 years ago. A lot could change in that amount of time. And when a figure jumped onto the stage and faced the crowd, I realized truer words had never been spoken or thought. A lot could change in that amount of time, and Asher York had certainly changed. I watched with a mixture of intrigue and surprise as he grabbed an acoustic electric guitar from a stand, plugging a cable into the end of the body. The man resembled the Asher York I once knew, but he was a far cry from the lanky man I remembered, and I definitely remembered him. Asher York wasn't the kind of person anyone could forget. His broad chest pulled at the simple gray t-shirt, his biceps filling the sleeves quite nicely. His dark hair had grown out and had a sexy, disheveled vibe, the perfect complement to the scruff along his jaw. But that wasn't the biggest change. Oh no. As if he weren't rock god personified with the longer hair and muscular physique, he had to add tattoos to the fantasy. I should have left, paid for my beer, headed back to my room. The last thing I needed was to reopen old wounds, and seeing Asher did just that. But like the first time my college roommate dragged me to a club to see a local band that was gaining in popularity, I was drawn to the man's rough, emotion-filled voice. I stared at my beer, concentrating on the melody. It sounded familiar, like a cloudy memory trying to return to the surface of my subconscious. The longer I listened, the more clear it became. By the time he sang the first chorus, it hit me. It was the same melody I'd heard him toil over endlessly during those late summer nights we stayed up together at his grandmother's lake house, while my then fiancé slept inside, who also happened to be Asher's brother. During the 2 years I'd dated Jesse, I was welcomed into his family with open arms. That included spending a few weeks of the summer at the lake house. It was actually one of the things I missed most when we broke up: the card games, the smell of burgers on the grill, spending the early morning hours listening to Asher pluck away at his guitar as he attempted to piece together a song. This song. Allowing my dark hair to cascade in front of my face in the hopes that Asher didn't recognize me in the crowd. I risked a glance at him. He seemed to have cast a spell on everyone here, just as he did all those years ago. People bobbed their heads in time with the song, one I'd heard more times than I cared to admit. The familiar chords akin to coming home after a long absence. I was transfixed as I listened to him sing about feeling like he was made for a particular woman, but she never saw him until it was too late. I didn't realize my eyes were glued to his every move until deafening applause thundered around me. The girls who had preened before the lead singer of the other band mere minutes ago now fawned over Asher. He smiled that breathtaking smile of his as he thanked the crowd, still as enigmatic a presence as always. His gaze floated over the throng, coming to an abrupt stop when he locked eyes with mine. I tried to look away, but the simple act of our gazes meeting turned me to stone, apart from the fluttering in my chest. It shouldn't have. I shouldn't have had any reaction to him. But I did. I had from the first time I saw him across a packed club in Boston. Snapping out of my stupor, I refocused my attention on my beer and drained it. I grabbed a bill from my wallet and left it on the counter, not caring about getting any change. The excessive tip was a price I was willing to pay to keep the past buried, to keep my secret buried. I was about to jump down from the stool when a hand on the bar next to me stopped me, running off without even saying hi. My eyes darted up, coming face to face with Asher York. His voice was even smoother than I remembered, a husky sound that hit places on my body that hadn't felt excitement in an eternity. I parted my lips, attempting to come up with a response, but I was rendered speechless when I caught a glimpse of his arm leaning on the bar, the position causing his biceps to flex and push against the confines of his t-shirt, stretching the fabric. A woodsy scent surrounded me as I stared, the smell reminding me of large family dinners, playing guitar on the dock overlooking the lake on his grandmother's property. Roasting marshmallows reminded me of a girl I used to be, one I'd tried to keep in the past, swallowing down the bittersweet memories. I pushed a strand of hair behind my ear, forcing a smile. "Asher, good to see you." I held my head high, looking anywhere but directly into his eyes. I couldn't. He had the same eyes as Jessie, born 11 months apart. Their appearance had always been strikingly similar. But that was where their similarities ended. The brothers as opposite as two people could be. Regardless, I'd never met siblings as close as they were. Or maybe I'd found it so foreign since I was an only child. Phew. He blew out a breath, laughing shakily. "I wasn't positive it was you. I thought it was. But everyone in this town seems to look like someone else." I shrugged, finally meeting his gaze. "It's me." "Good. That would have been awkward otherwise." A flirtatious smile curved up the corners of his lips. He even had the same smile as Jessie. But Asher's looked more natural, like he was actually happy. "What are you doing in Vegas?" he continued, when I didn't immediately say anything. "I could ask you the same question." He nodded at the stage. "Music." He didn't embellish. "Your turn." "Bachelorette party. Hannah's getting married next month, and Bernadette was in charge of planning her bachelorette party." A look of understanding crossed his face. "Say no more." As uneasy as it should have been to see Asher again, considering his connection to a time in my life I would have preferred to keep in my rearview mirror, it was refreshing to talk to someone who already knew me, scars and all. Someone I didn't have to go into all the details of my life with because he already knew. Hell, he'd been present during some of them. "Cash you out," Miss the bartender's voice cut through. I nodded. "Thank you." "Actually," Asher interrupted before the bartender could retreat with my money. "She'll have another. And I'll have an IPA." He placed a finger on the cash I'd left on the bar and slid it back in front of me. "Put all her drinks on my tab. That's not necessary." I insisted, attempting to push the bill back toward the bartender. "I really should be going. It's been a long night and The heat coming off him as his hand wrapped around my arm stopped me mid-sentence. I flung my wide eyes to his, my insides vibrating at his touch. "Stay." One word, and my mouth went dry. One word, and my heart pounded in my chest. One word, and I forgot all the reasons I should leave. "Okay." I slowly slunk back into my bar stool. What harm would one drink with an old friend be? Chapter 3. Present day turns out. One drink did lead to a lot of harm, not only to J. Essie, but to my heart, and Asher's. In my life, I've made my fair share of mistakes, but sleeping with Asher in Vegas tops them all. With his invitation to stay, the web was cast, Each minute we spent together, another string tethering me to him until it was nearly impossible to walk away. But we had no choice but to do just that, considering who we were to each other. Earth to Izzy. A familiar voice cuts through. I meet Nora's sky-blue eyes as we sit at a bar by Columbus Circle for our traditional Thursday evening get-together. I almost didn't come tonight, but after Jesse's proposition, I need a night with my girls. Need some sort of normalcy. Sorry. I smile half-heartedly. Must have spaced out. Are you okay? She places a hand on my forearm. You don't seem like yourself. Just thinking about one of the kids at work. I hate using my patience as an excuse when it's Jesse's proposition that weighs heavy on my mind. I shouldn't give it a moment's thought. There is absolutely nothing good that can come out of seeing Asher York again, but I can't forget Jesse's insistence that I'm his last resort, and Asher's last chance. I can't imagine doing what you do. A sympathetic expression crosses her face. It must take its toll. I swallow hard, nodding, sipping my vodka tonic. I shift my eyes to Evie, who sits on the other side of Nora. Is Chloe still at the office? She furrows her brows. She hasn't been in all week. She hasn't... No. I assumed she would have told you. Lincoln surprised her with a trip to Vegas, since this week marked the 1-year anniversary of them hooking up during that blackout. I take another sip of my drink, trying to act as if that fact hasn't also been on my mind the past few days. Yes, it's the anniversary of Chloe and Lincoln hooking up when we were stranded in Vegas during a blackout. But it's also the anniversary of me sleeping with Asher, an event I was confident I'd put behind me once I left the city of sin. That was before Jessie walked back into my life. She won't be here. No, she's coming. Evie looks at her watch. She should be here as if on cue. A whirlwind of blonde hair flies through the doors, heading straight toward us. Sorry I'm late. Chloe exhales, dropping her purse on the bar and signaling the bartender for her normal martini before assuming her seat. How was Vegas? Evie asks, leaning toward her, her green eyes alight with anticipation. Yeah. How was Vegas? I repeat, my tone almost accusatory. Chloe looks my way, a silent apology in her gaze. I know why she didn't mention it to me. I may have spent the past year insisting I rarely thought of my one night with Asher, but she can see the truth. That even though it was only one night, it's been impossible for me to truly forget. Even more so now that Asher York has become a household name. Actually, she begins, addressing Evie and Nora. I have a newfound appreciation for that city. I did find it odd you'd willingly go to Vegas, Nora interjects, knowing all too well how much Chloe despises everything to do with that place. Next to me, Nora's known Chloe the longest, having been roommates their freshman year of college. Yes, well, I suppose it took meeting the right guy to change my mind. And he's changed my mind on a lot of things. Like this. With a blinding smile, she holds her left hand toward us, a large diamond on a very important finger. But that's not all. In addition to the ring sits a double band on either side. We all simultaneously gasp. You're married, Evie shrieks. Chloe nods excitedly as we all take turns examining the stunning setting. That's amazing, Nora adds, flinging her arms around her. And I'm not even the least bit upset you got married without telling us. She pulls back, holding her at arm's length. It's perfect. Exactly what I've always imagined your wedding would be like. Crazy, untraditional, private, like you. I'm happy for you, I offer, although my words lack any enthusiasm. With Chloe's marriage to Lincoln, coupled with Evie's wedding to Julian late last year, and Nora's to Jeremy last summer, I'm now the odd one out, the only one in our circle who isn't married, the only one who's so far away from the sound of wedding bells, I may as well pack my bags for the convent. Chloe reaches across the bar, grasping my hand in hers, and we share a look. It's strange to think of her as married. She's always been fiercely independent, vehemently anti-relationship, until Lincoln weaseled his way into her heart. Are you okay? I hate this question. Am I okay? My best friend is married. Of course. I'm thrilled she found someone who values and respects her. Am I okay? My best friend is married to one of Asher York's college friends. That's a more difficult question to answer. How will I react when I run into him at a party they throw? Will we pretend Vegas never happened? Will I ever be able to move on, like I've tried? Better than okay. I'm so happy for you. Truly. She squeezes my hand, then pulls back, answering the myriad of questions Evie rapidly fires at her. Over the next hour, Chloe shares every detail of her special day. The few pictures she has tell the story of a wedding as outrageous as one would expect a Vegas wedding to be. Hell, Chloe didn't even wear white. Instead, she opted for a tight-fitting red dress while Lincoln wore his typical tweed blazer and jeans. And around her neck hangs a strand of penises, like she wore the night she first met Lincoln. Anyone else wouldn't want photos of what's supposed to be the most memorable day of their lives marred with a penis necklace. But Chloe's never been one to play by the rules. But don't worry, she says as she finishes her martini. We're going to do a little reception this summer. She looks at Evie. Can we throw it at Julian's Southampton home? Well, I guess it's yours, too. Sorry. It's weird to think of you as a Hampton socialite. Evie smiles. Don't worry, I still call it his house. To which he reminds me it's mine, too. And of course, you guys are more than welcome to have a reception there. We'd be honored to host it. Thank you. Chloe gives her an appreciative smile before glancing at her watch. Crap. She pushes out of her chair, tugging her coat back on. Sorry to drink and dash, but my husband's waiting. Love you, girls? She blows us all a kiss, then retreats in the same flurry with which she arrived. We all return our eyes forward, a silence washing over us as we process the fact that Chloe got married. The bar is still abuzz with activity, a mixture of commuters and tourists coming out of the cold for a minute to grab a quick drink. Polite chatter surrounds us, interspersed with a few cheers from people watching the hockey game on the large screen TVs hanging from the ceiling. Everything is exactly like it is on any other Thursday, except my anti-marriage best friend is now married, and to the man she hooked up with on the same night I slept with Asher. Well, that's something I wouldn't have put money on, Nora says after a beat, pushing a lock of her strawberry blonde hair behind her ear. My money was on her never getting married, Evie offers. Just living with Lincoln. She's never been a traditional girl, at least from what I picked up in the 6 or so years since I started working at the magazine. Both her and Nora look to me, considering I've known Chloe since childhood. She humored her cousin, Hannah, and me whenever we would plan our weddings as kids. But I don't think she ever saw the point, probably because there was always a strange dynamic between her parents. She didn't exactly come from a house filled with love. I pinch my lips into a tight line, then brighten my expression, but I'm happy for her. She deserves this. I truly believe that. Between caring for an alcoholic mother and dealing with a father who always looked at her as an inconvenience before finally smartening up, she's had one hell of a year, one hell of a life. She deserves to be with someone who will fight for her, and Lincoln does that. He has from the beginning. So now it's just you. Evie's voice is chipper, her expression bright as she peers at me. When are you going to tie the knot? I roll my eyes. I'd need to meet someone first. I thought you had something going on with one of the anesthesiologists at the hospital. Nora interjects. Who wouldn't love to marry a doctor? Evie agrees. It's a casual thing when we both need to work off some stress. Trust me, dating is difficult enough, especially in this city, not to mention the fact I work a job with strange hours. I've yet to find any guy who'd be okay with my schedule for the long term. It's easier to go in detached with no expectations. Saves me from being pushed to the side when he realizes I'm not what he wants. It's okay, Nora assures me, straightening her spine. Sometimes marriage isn't all it's cracked up to be. This certainly catches our attention. Nora was the first one in our group to get married. What was supposed to be a no-strings-attached hookup, arranged through Tinder, turned into a whirlwind romance. Less than 3 months after their first date, she'd agreed to marry him. It struck me as odd, and I questioned Jeremy's motives, how he could go from wanting a quick romp in the sack to proposing in what seemed like the blink of an eye. But Nora reminded us she did the same thing, that when you met the right one, you just knew. I can't fault her there. People questioned my own engagement to Jesse all those years ago, claimed we were too young to get married. To make that life-altering decision, I used the same argument Nora did. I think a part of me worried he was my only chance at happiness, at finally having a family, at finally having a home. "Is everything okay with you and Jeremy?" I ask in a low voice. "Of course," she answers cheerfully, but doesn't look directly at me, or Evie. She fidgets with the hem of her black pencil skirt. It doesn't matter that she owns a yoga and meditation studio and spends most of her days in workout clothes. She still likes to look fashionable in public, unlike myself, who has no problem wearing scrubs almost every minute of my day. Although I did put on jeans and a nice shirt tonight. Everything's great. He's been traveling a lot for work. And, yes, Evie leans closer. "It's stupid," she states after a brief pause. "What is Nora?" worries her bottom lip, floating her gaze between Evie and me. Then she exhales a long breath. The 2-year anniversary of our first date was over the weekend. Or I guess the first time we slept together. Because our first real date didn't happen until a few weeks after that. But he didn't even acknowledge it. I didn't expect things to maintain their excitement after being together for several years. But I don't know. Her shoulders fall. Last year, he celebrated every anniversary, ones I couldn't even remember. And I'm the girl in our relationship. I'm supposed to be the one who remembers the date he first burped in front of me, or when I first made him his favorite meal. She sighs, swirling her wine around in the glass. I just wish we could still have that spark. You know, Evie places her hand on Nora's bicep, smiling sympathetically. I get it. It's a pitfall of all relationships. You get comfortable. Maybe you need to rekindle the spark somehow. Have you had this problem with Julian? Evie hesitates, probably because she hasn't. I've seen them together. I've never observed two people as in love as they are. Until Lincoln and Chloe. And I thought Nora and Jeremy. Maybe appearances can be deceiving. No, but we do things to keep the spark alive. When I used to be in charge of the sex and dating column at the magazine before being promoted to assistant editor, this was a common topic, one I wrote about constantly. And what advice did you give? Sometimes you need to go back to the start, remind each other why he called you up for a date after it was only supposed to be a random hookup. Nora focuses her eyes forward. Then she jumps up from the bar stool, tugging her wool coat over her. That's it. You're a genius. Evie. She kisses her head, then hugs me before rushing out of the bar, much like Chloe. And then there were two, I comment as I bring my glass to my lips. At that moment, Evie's phone chirps and she floats her eyes to it, her expression shining, a blush blooming on her cheeks. It doesn't take a genius to know who's texting her. Julian, I ask. Yeah. Do you need to go? When her eyes fall on me, there's a flicker of pity within. Do you mind? It's just, I wave her off. Go. Enjoy your evening. Her brows furrow. Are you sure you're not upset? I feel like we're all ditching you for our husbands. Well, we kind of are, but it's okay. Dr. Ben texted earlier to see if I wanted to come over. I lie. Fun. She waggles her brows, withdrawing a few bills to cover her drink. You enjoy Dr. McDreamy. She scoots off her bar stool and buttons up her coat. See you later. You bet. I watch as she scurries toward the exit. Once she disappears from view, I settle back into my bar stool, signaling the bartender for another drink. And then there was one. Chapter 4. TV cameras line the sidewalk when I arrive for my shift the following Wednesday evening. This isn't the first time I've bypassed news crews to get into the hospital, but as I strain to catch snippets of what the reporters say, a heaviness settles in the pit of my stomach. Layoffs, budget cuts, board salary increases. I walk through the front doors and into chaos, Another nurse I recognize pushes past, head lowered, tears streaking down her cheeks, holding a box of what I can only assume to be the contents of her locker, not wanting to stare. I keep my eyes forward as I make my way into an elevator, joining a mixture of visitors, doctors, and nurses. Normally, there's a bit of chatter about the day, weekend plans, the latest drama involving a staff member, but it's silent today, which doesn't help to settle my nerves. Considering my supervisor called and requested that I come to the hospital a little early, I assumed it was for my quarterly review. Although now that I think about it, I had my review not even 6 weeks ago. When the elevator slows to a stop on my floor, I almost don't want to get off. Holding my head high, I smile as I pass the registration desk. The familiar scent of hand sanitizer, latex, and coffee greets me, as it has nearly every day for the past 3 years. When Emma, the intake nurse, looks at me with apologetic eyes, I know why I've been asked to come in early. After all, I am the newest nurse in the unit, the one with the least seniority. It doesn't matter, I've probably clocked more hours than some of the nurses who've been here significantly longer. My anniversary date is the most recent. As the old saying goes, last one in is the first one out. My heart echoes in my ears as I approach Donna's work area, a semi-private cubicle just off the registration desk. I knock gently on the partition wall, and she looks up from the file she was reviewing. Removing her glasses, she greets me with a warm smile, an underlying sadness visible. "Izzy, thanks for coming in early. I'm getting fired, aren't I?" I blurt out. I saw the reporters out front. They're all talking about massive layoffs. She stands from her desk, grabbing the file, before ushering me away. "We'll talk in private. Your union steward is already here. She doesn't have to say anything else. There's only one reason for a union steward to be present at a meeting between myself and my supervisor: to protect my interests." I follow her down the hallway, moving swiftly through the oncology wing and toward one of the administrative offices. When we enter, a dark-skinned woman wearing pink scrubs stands. I greet Justine with a nod. I haven't had much interaction with her since she works in cardiology, but I've always respected her drive and tenacity to protect the interests of all nurses. Donna lowers herself into the chair behind the desk, gesturing for me to sit in the free one across from her and next to Justine. I do so, albeit warily. She places her glasses back on, opening the file and perusing it briefly before returning her attention to me. Expelling a sigh, she seems to be at a loss for words. This is the part of the job they don't warn you about when you take it. It's one thing to have to fire someone who can't cut it, but another. She trails off, collecting her thoughts before lifting her eyes to mine again. "You're right. The directive came down around Thanksgiving. Every department was ordered to cut their budget by varying degrees, which translates into cutting staff." She removes her glasses, shaking her head. "My hands are tied here. I was told to decrease my nursing staff by 2, so that means Gretchen and I are getting the axe." "Right. If I had any other choice, I'd keep you. Izzy, I'm just following orders, whether I like them or not." She retrieves a set of papers from the file. The hospital has put together a severance package, 4 months' salary paid on the 1st of every month, as well as health insurance for a year, which would be great had I not had to depend on overtime hours to make ends meet. Since I'm the proverbial low man on the totem pole in this unit, there's nothing I can do to prevent this from happening. But I can't stop the panic from setting in. The hospital will also pay out any vacation or sick time you've accumulated, Justine adds. Immediately. "I truly am sorry," Donna says. "Trust me, I tried to fight this." She nods at Justine. "We all did. And the union's still trying to fight this. Unfortunately, those who make the decisions don't walk these floors, don't take care of patients, don't understand how worn thin the nursing staff is already. But I promise you, the second this passes, and I'm able to hire more staff again, you're the first phone call I'll make. It kills me to have to let go of such an amazing nurse. But like I've said, I know. Your hands are tied." A A few hours later, I collapse on the couch in my tiny studio apartment, setting the box with all the belongings from my work locker on the coffee table in front of me. I have no idea what to do with myself. I can't remember a time I didn't work. My parents did well for themselves, but they wanted to teach me responsibility. So once I turned 16, I got a job. It was a condition of being able to get my driver's license. In the 14 years since I entered the workforce, I've rarely taken time off. Now that I don't have my work, I'm at a loss, not to mention unsure how I'll pay my bills. As I contemplate my options, my phone rings. I pull it from my bag to dismiss the call, in no mood to talk to anyone. When I see it's my dad, I smile, my muscles relaxing. Hey, Papa. Hey, Butterfly. It doesn't matter that I'm 30. He'll always call me Butterfly. I hated it when I was a teenager, but now that I've outgrown that phase of my life, I appreciate the affectionate nickname. I heard the news about your hospital. Are you? I've been let go. I answer quickly. Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. I know how much you loved that job. It's okay. There will be another job. I feed him the same line I've told myself repeatedly the past few hours. There's no doubt in my mind there will be another job, but there won't be another one like this. Do you need money I can... No. I'm fine. I'm getting 4 months' pay without having to lift a single finger. If you ask me, I made out in this scenario. I attempt to sound chipper so he can't hear the worry filling me. That's the right attitude. When he pauses, I sense he didn't just call to check if I'm still employed. What is it, I ask with hesitation? What do you mean I know you? Dad, there's another reason you called. He blows out a breath. I can't get anything by you. Can I? No. You can't. Tell me what it is. You've just been laid off. This can wait a few days. It's nothing that needs immediate attention. If it's more bad news, I'd rather hear it all on the same day. Are you sure I can handle it? Okay. He sighs. I got a jump start on your taxes. I told you I'd do them myself. I admonish, which would take you hours. Whereas I can do this blindfolded. You're probably right. How much am I getting back? It's still too soon to file, but the thought of getting that extra money will help ease the stress a little. Actually, sweetie, you're not. With the new tax law, things have changed. You can't deduct certain expenses like you used to. I furrow my brows. What does that mean? It means you owe this year. Owe how much? A little over $5,000. Frustration builds in my throat. I want to scream, cry, something. I have a hard enough time making ends meet as it is. Now I have a substantial tax bill on top of being laid off. Apparently, Rock Bottom has a basement. Your mother and I are willing to help if you need it. No, I say, stubborn as always. While most people would accept the help, that's never been who I am. You don't have to. I'll take care of it myself. The hospital offered me a pretty good severance package. I'll be fine. We don't mind. It's okay. I'm an adult. Paying taxes is part of it. But can I wait until April? By then, I'll have another job and will still be collecting my severance pay. Plus, I'm not in the habit of giving the government money before the due date when I could be earning interest on it. Like father, like daughter. He chuckles. You can wait. That's why I called you now. Hell, it's why I asked for your final pay stub from last year. I had a bad feeling in my gut, so I wanted to get ahead of the 8 ball here, so to speak. Figured the more time you had to save, the better. But like I said, Don't worry, I interrupt. I'll manage. Okay. He pauses for a beat, then states, Since I'm delivering bad news, I should mention I received a phone call from Child Services today. I chew on the inside of my cheek, not immediately saying anything. They just want an answer either way. A bunch of reporters are hounding them, still trying to be the first to run a story on the JFK baby. It was just the 30-year anniversary. I know, I say with a sigh. I saw the news stories they did run. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. We have the same conversation around this time every year. The media reaches out to child services wanting to do a story on the baby who was abandoned in the ladies' room at JFK Airport. In turn, child services reaches out to my parents to see if I'd like to finally reveal my identity to the press. My parents ask me, telling me they'll support whatever I choose. I waver, a part of me wanting to go public just so I can find out who my birth mother was. Another part unsure I'm ready to face that. Some of them do offer a small appearance fee. He reminds me, I'm not interested in the media combing through my life and looking at me with sympathy because the woman who gave birth to me didn't want me. Not interested in the public offering their opinion on why she didn't want me. I understand. Your mother and I will always support your decision in this. If you do change your mind, we'll stand by your side every step of the way. I allow his words to comfort me, as they always do. Thanks. Papa, I'll come by soon for dinner. Your mother would love that. Greenwich isn't that far. According to some New Yorkers, it's a different country. Then make sure to bring your passport. Love you. Butterfly. Love you, too. Papa. Chapter 5. I sit at my tiny breakfast table, sorting through bills, prioritizing them by what I absolutely must pay. It's been so long since I've received a direct deposit without at least 20 hours of overtime pay that I've forgotten how little money I made, particularly in comparison to the high cost of living here in Manhattan. If I lived anywhere else, I probably would have been able to make it work, but now I can't even scrape by. After paying my rent and heating bill, the balance in my bank account is laughable. Frustrated, I shove the bills away, watching them scatter onto the floor. I stare at them, venom in my gaze. When I notice the royalty agreement Jesse gave me, I push out of my chair, grabbing it, focusing on the 20 grand bonus if Asher makes his studio date. That money would certainly help. I'd be able to pay all my bills for the next few months, and even put a little away in savings until the album released and the royalty payments started coming in. Can I really do this? Can I really see Asher again? Is the money worth the eventual price my heart will pay from the simple act of being in his presence? Perhaps I'm looking at this the wrong way. I am getting paid. Perhaps I should consider this as nothing more than a job, with Asher as my employer. Short-term employment while I search for something else. Unlocking the screen on my phone, I scroll through my contacts, my finger hovering when I come to Jesse's name. I once dialed this number so often he'd earned a spot in my favorites. Now it's been 9 years since I hit this number. I hold my breath as I listen to the line ring. I can end the call. It's not like I don't have options. I can ask my parents for a loan. Even Chloe, Evie, and Nora offered to help when they learned I'd been laid off. But my pride prevents me from asking anyone to support me. I like knowing I can find my own way. Maybe this is the way I need to go. I was wrong. Jesse's deep voice answers on the third ring. Excuse me. About how long it would take you to call. I figured you'd call in a day to accept my offer. Instead, you made me wait on pins and needles for over a month. You really know how to torture a guy. What makes you think I'm calling to accept? I could be calling as a courtesy to tell you I'm not interested? True, but I know you well enough to know you'll do this. Despite what happened between us, you'd never hold that against Asher. You're too compassionate a person. I chew on my lower lip. He'd be singing a different tune if he knew the truth. Well, luckily for you, I've recently found myself with some free time on my hands and am willing to help. Thank you, he breathes. You have no idea what this means to me. And Asher, would you like to go over the contract in greater detail? I can answer any questions. That's not necessary. I read it over, I lie, not wanting him to think I'm doing this out of pure desperation, and would agree no matter what was contained in these pages. I don't need his pity. Don't need anyone's pity. It all seems rather straightforward. I hang out with Asher. I get a percentage. If he makes the studio date with enough songs to record an entire album, I'll receive a bonus, payable immediately. That about sums it up. He pauses. Except there's just one thing, something I couldn't put in the contract, but I hope you'll agree regardless. What's that? My skin prickles with heat, unease weighing down my stomach. I want this arrangement to stay between us. I don't want you to tell Asher I'm paying you to inspire him. So, Asher doesn't know. My words come out as a mixture of a question and a statement. No. And I want to keep it that way. If he knew the truth, the whole thing might backfire. I want your interactions to be as authentic as possible, like they were all those years ago, when you spent time with him because you genuinely liked being with him. That's what I'm trying to recreate, and you're the only person who can do that. I take a few steps toward the opposite end of my apartment and peer out at the city below me. Don't you think he'll be suspicious? How do you plan on explaining my sudden reappearance after all this time? Don't worry about that. I've got it handled. How Grams, he explains. She's been on my case to make things right with you for years. Says she can't meet her maker when there's still an imbalance in her world, or something like that. His statement causes a laugh to escape. It sounds exactly like something she'd say. She always was good at laying on those guilt trips. I'll just tell Asher you're there for Graham's sake. And when I stay longer than a normal visit, how do you hope to explain that he'll question it at some point? Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it, even if it means telling everyone we're together again. No, I shout. It's one thing to keep Asher in the dark about the true reason I'm there. Hell, it'll be awkward enough as it is. At least we parted ways on somewhat amicable terms after our one night together. We both realized it was a mistake to sleep together, regardless of any feelings we may have had for one another. But the mere thought of Jesse trying to convince Asher we're back together makes it difficult to breathe. I couldn't betray Asher like that. Too bad I had no problem betraying Jesse. I didn't realize the idea was that revolting. Jesse snips with a hint of venom. It's not that. I attempt to appease him, pulling my lips between my teeth. I don't like lying to your family, any more than necessary. I add as an afterthought. He doesn't immediately respond. Every second that passes causes my pulse to increase. I stare at the dull gray walls, praying I didn't just make him suspicious of me. Of us. I understand the awkward position I'm putting you in, he says finally. I'll just have Grams insist you stay after the weekend, and that's an invitation I'd never turn down. You know how much I love Grams. A warmth fills my heart at the memory of spending hours in the kitchen with her as she regaled me with another crazy story from her past. And she certainly loves you. He chuckles. For months after you left, she always gave me that evil side eye of hers, the one that made me think she was casting some voodoo spell on me. I join his laughter, all too familiar with that look. She'd given it to me a few times. Usually when I refused one of Asher's invitations to head out to the dock with him, opting to spend time with Jesse instead. Shouldn't she have been more upset if I hadn't chosen my boyfriend? So you're on board? You're okay keeping this quiet from Asher. I hate to be that guy, but without your agreement on this point, the deal is off the table. I sigh, pinching the bridge of my nose. A premonition settles in my stomach that this has the potential to backfire. But does it matter? After my time at the lake house, I'll have no reason to see either man again. If Asher finds out the truth, that's on Jesse, not me. You have my word. I won't mention our arrangement to Asher. I knew I could count on you. I'll arrange all your travel and send you the details. I'll try to get you into Logan Airport tomorrow around 2 and pick you up. That way, we can beat rush hour. Tomorrow I can't mask the surprise in my voice, my pulse skyrocketing. It was one thing to agree to this in the abstract, thinking I had time to mentally prepare, but now that I'm less than 24 hours away from coming face to face with the one man I've tried to forget, nerves rack my body. Unfortunately, we're short on time. Every minute counts. It's already been a month since I came to you with my proposition. I part my lips, about to tell Jesse this isn't a good idea, when my gaze settles on the agreement. $20,000. I need that money. Of course. I relent. I understand. I just lost track of the days. Thank you. You're saving his career. If you didn't agree to this, I don't know what I would have done. I close my eyes, blowing out a breath. I can't back out now. Not after the reminder of what's at stake. I'll keep an eye out for my travel details. See you tomorrow, Jesse. See ya is Chapter 6. As Jesse navigates along the steep, winding dirt road leading to Graham's lake house the following evening, I can't stop my heart from pounding, my hands from growing clammy, my stomach from becoming queasy. I try to hide my nerves from Jesse. In his mind, the hardest part of this adventure is overspending 3 hours in an enclosed space with my ex-fiancé as he drove from Boston to a quaint house in the hills of New Hampshire. All I have to worry about now is reuniting with his brother, who I slept with, then avoided the past year. Jesse drives around a bend, slowing to a crawl as he turns onto a gravel path, the uneven surface jostling me, before finally coming to a stop. He shifts the car into park and kills the ignition, glancing at me. Ready. I peer through the window at the 2-story wooden structure. It looks the same as it did nearly a decade ago, except for a fresh coat of stain on the siding. Lights from within illuminate all the windows, and a bit of smoke billows out of the stone chimney, blowing out a long breath. I nod. Just remember, you're here for Grams, because you have an amazing heart and didn't want another year to go by without seeing her, despite any animosity you may still have toward me. Jesse. I don't. He holds up a hand, cutting me off. It's okay. Lay on as much of a guilt trip as you want. Grams would probably appreciate that. With a deep chuckle, he opens the door, rushing around to help me, when I open my own door and step down from the SUV. He gives me a playful look of admonishment. Still the same stubborn Izzy. Aren't you? What do you mean you make it impossible for me to be a gentleman around you? In more ways than one. He flashes a devious smile, then strides to the trunk and retrieves our luggage, refusing to allow me to carry mine. But seriously, would it kill you to let a guy open the door for you once in a while? He steers me up the path and toward the house. I'm fully capable of opening my own doors. You're fully capable of doing a lot of things. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be treated like the treasure you are. And that includes risking a fall on a sheet of ice to open the door for you. The memory forces a laugh to escape. On our first date, I was confused when he attempted to rush to my side of the car. While I'd seen my father open my mother's door constantly, I never considered I'd date someone who would do that for me. By the time I finally got used to it, it had turned into a game. He'd dart from the driver's seat as quickly as possible to beat me to opening my door, which was all in good fun until he slipped on some ice and dislocated his shoulder. Okay, from now on, I'll wait for you to open my door, just to avoid playing nurse while you recuperate. He nudges me. Actually, I kind of liked when you played nurse, especially when you walked in wearing that sexy little costume. My cheeks blush, but it's not enough for me to steer the conversation elsewhere. It's refreshing to reminisce about the good times we shared, and we did share some amazing times together. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to find a sexy nurse's costume in January? I had to rush order one online so it would get here in time. But you were worth having to eat ramen noodles for a few weeks until I got my next paycheck. My admission slips out before I can stop it. And you were worth dislocating my shoulder. I'd happily risk it again to hear your squeals of joy when you won our little game. He smirks, then stops beside a large oak tree lining the drive. Do you remember what happened here? He nods toward the tree, dropping our bags to the ground. I head toward it, running my fingers along the bark, stopping when I feel the indentation. J, Y, and I. I murmur, do you remember what I told you right after we carved our initials into that tree? I straighten, meeting his gaze. That you loved me. You thought I was crazy. That it was too soon. When he tucks a strand of hair behind my ear, my breathing quickens. You always were on the practical side, So were you. That's why it surprised me. What can I say? He adjusts his stance, closing the distance between us. You brought out a side of me I didn't know existed. You still do. His eyes skate over my face, seemingly imprinting everything about it to memory. My nose, my cheeks, my lips, which he stares at for an inordinately long time. But he doesn't push forward. Neither do I. I remain frozen in place, too scared to advance, too broken to retreat. Then he exhales, releasing me from his hold. I should be relieved he didn't try to kiss me, but a small part of me wanted him to, wanted to feel him, wanted to replace the memory of Asher's lips on mine with a new one that isn't laced with lies and betrayal. But I fear even if I kissed 1,000 men, I'll never be able to erase Asher's kiss, not with the way it's imprinted on my soul, in the very fiber of who I am. We should go inside, he states matter-of-factly. You're right. We should. I avert my eyes, pushing past the tree. Jesse catches up with ease. I'm sorry. It's okay. I interrupt. The last thing I need is to listen to my ex-fiancé apologize for not kissing me when I never should have wanted him to in the first place. It's not that I don't want to kiss you. I do. Have since the second you walked into that bar and I saw you for the first time in years. He drops the bags at the foot of the stairs leading up to the porch. His firm grip on my arm forces me to stop. When you took off your jacket and revealed that red dress. His voice grows husky, wanton, reminding me so much of Asher's tone when in the throes of passion. The vein in his neck throbs, his jaw clenched, nostrils flaring. I'd always thought Jesse and Asher to be complete opposites, where one was night, the other was day, where one was difficult, the other was easy, where one was aloof, the other was attentive. Regardless, they still exhibited the same intense passion toward whatever drove them, whether it be music, work, or me. It drove me fucking crazy. Still does. As much as I want to kiss you, and I am dying to taste your lips again, I want it to happen because you want it to. Not because you're in a place where you're surrounded by memories of us. I want your kiss to come naturally, quietly, like the way we fell in love all those years ago. Jesse, I wish you were the asshole I'd painted him to be to all my friends when I told them of our breakup. But an asshole wouldn't drop to his knees and beg me to give him another chance. Wouldn't unabashedly cry as he tried to grasp onto me, knowing nothing would keep me there. Wouldn't go along with my story that he was the one to blame, especially when we were both at fault. I don't blame you if you'll never trust me, but I promise if you give me a chance, I will spend every day regaining that trust. I peer at him through guilt-ridden eyes. I don't even know what to say. It's probably the first honest thing I've said to him since we reconnected. The first phrase that doesn't have a hidden meaning, that isn't a cover for my lies. I get it. You're probably wishing you never agreed to this, but I'm glad you did. If only so I could finally tell you everything I've wanted to say for years. I should have kept my mouth shut, but I hate the idea of wondering what if. I've lived the past 9 years wondering what if. What if I hadn't pushed you to give up your social life for me? What if I was more understanding? What if I listened to you more? You did listen. We were at 2 different places in our lives. Like Grams always says, everything happens for a reason. Exactly. I grab my bag and drag it up the few steps and onto the porch. Jesse scrambles after me, grasping the handle from me before I can reach the door. But you know what I can't understand, he asks softly. What's that? I flick my gaze to him. For the life of me, I can't come up with a reason for what happened between us. Chapter 7. The lake house is almost as I remember it. Despite the passing of nearly a decade, the living room just off the foyer still exudes a rustic chic vibe, a mixture of modern furnishings and wood accents filling the space. I inhale, able to make out the faint aroma of a fire crackling in the fireplace in the great room toward the back of the spacious house. As I look around, I feel like I've been here before. not just in the physical sense, but also in an emotional way. The nervous energy filling me is reminiscent of the way I felt the first time Jesse brought me here to meet his family. It was the same day I realized the hot lead singer of the band I'd been following was also Jesse's older brother. Sensing my nerves, Jesse grabs my hand, squeezing. I bring my gaze to his, offering him a grateful smile. "It's about time you got here," a deep voice rumbles. I stiffen, my breath catching as I fling my eyes toward the kitchen, my pulse skyrocketing, skin on fire. It's official. I didn't give this plan the care and consideration it deserved. I should have taken a page out of Evie's book and made a list of pros and cons. Pros, money. Paying my bills, not ending up homeless. Cons, Asher York. Sleeping with Asher York. The fact I was once engaged to Asher York's brother. Yup. The cons win. Panic setting in. I search for an escape route that won't draw any attention, but it's too late. The second I stepped into the SUV with Jesse, it was too late. "You're usually the one who's on time. What held you?" As Asher rounds the corner into the living room and our gazes meet for the first time in over a year, he trails off, coming to a stop. His jaw drops, eyes blinking repeatedly, as if unsure he's seeing correctly. When his stare focuses on my hand joined in Jesse's, I quickly step away, lowering my head. "Up," he finishes, doing his best to pretend this isn't an awkward encounter. But it is. There's no way this wouldn't be. I'm standing in a room with two men I've slept with. Two brothers. "Sorry. Man," Jesse says. I push down the thought of Asher and Jesse comparing war stories. Traffic leaving the city was rough. And this one has a bladder the size of a pea. He hooks a thumb at me. "Pretty sure we stopped at every rest stop between the airport and here." I slowly lift my eyes, meeting Asher's gaze once more. I haven't been this close to him since I kissed him goodbye in Vegas after we agreed we had no choice but to go our separate ways. And damn it, he looks even better than he did then. His dark hair is a little shorter, but still falls almost to his chin, a sexy, disheveled look to it. A bit of scruff covers his jawline, and I squeeze my legs together at the memory of it scraping along my thighs. His muscles pull at his V-neck t-shirt, his jeans falling sinfully from his hips. I could be wrong, but I think he has a few more tattoos than he did last year. The ink covering his left arm, now a full sleeve, remembering where I am and who I'm with. I clear my throat, putting a stop to my mental undressing. "Asher, it's good to see you." I thrust my hand out, doing my best to prevent it from trembling as I wait for him to shake it. "Congratulations on all your success." A handshake is... Jesse comments. "You guys used to be practically inseparable. I thought you'd be thrilled to see each other again." He looks at Asher. "Thought you'd like this little surprise." I'm certainly surprised. I don't think I'd be more surprised if Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy all walked in together, eyes still trained on me. He arches a single brow, silently asking if I'm okay with a hug. I nod, my motions subtle. As apprehensive as I am about feeling Asher's body against mine once more, especially in Jesse's presence, I need to act as normal as possible, his gaze not straying from mine. Asher steps toward me. The instant he encloses me in his strong embrace, I exhale my held breath. His touch is hesitant, like that first dance with a member of the opposite sex during middle school. Awkward, stilted, forced. But as I melt into him, my own arms wrapping around his body, which feels even more muscular than it was a year ago. He relaxes, pulling me tighter against him. I close my eyes, resting my head against his chest, wishing I could stay in this place, in this moment, in this bubble, the rhythm of his racing heart soothing me in a cloak of familiarity. "Good to see you again." Asher's words vibrate through me, followed by the sensation of his lips against my temple. It's a simple kiss, one shared so often between friends. But nothing between Asher and me has ever been simple. I try to ignore it, but even a slight brushing of his skin against mine causes a rush of need to fill me. It takes every ounce of resolve I possess to peel myself from him and return to Jesse's side. You, too, Ash. I fight against the tears threatening to fall down my cheeks. I'd give anything to return to Asher's arms. To live there. To die there. Really good. Too good. He peers at me with the same passion he did during our one night together. Then, as if remembering we're not alone, he rips his eyes from mine. His expression hardens, spine straightening, flipping the switch from my Asher to the Asher, who was forced to erect a wall around his heart after I broke it. After we broke each other. Does Grams know she'll be here? His voice is almost accusatory, any affection he held toward me gone. I shouldn't be surprised. After all, our night together in Vegas was one big game of push and pull. For every step we took toward each other, he'd remember who I was and take 2 giant leaps backward. I imagine the same will be true now. Except I won't take any more steps toward him. I learned my lesson last time. Of course. And Mom and Dad. I fling my gaze toward Jesse. Your parents are here, too. I must have forgotten to mention that. He replies, it was a last-minute trip anyway, a belated celebration for Graham's birthday. I blink. It was one thing to be around Asher again, but their parents, too. How many more surprises will there be? Is that Jessie? I hear Mrs. York's voice echoes against the tall ceiling before her short, petite frame appears in the doorway, then stops abruptly. Izzy. Her tone rises in pitch, obviously taken aback. Her stare shifts from me to Jessie, then takes a quick detour to Asher before returning to me. Grams has been on my case to do whatever it takes to get her to come see her. Sensing my own irritation with the situation, Jesse flashes me that megawatt smile of his that I couldn't help but say yes to when he first asked me out. So I did. Mrs. York remains frozen in place as this turn of events registers in her brain, the situation only serving to increase my trepidation. Well, her mouth curving into a genuine smile. She holds her arms wide and pulls me in for a hug. This is wonderful. A bit of a surprise, but wonderful all the same. It's great to see you, Mrs. York. She releases me, narrowing her gaze. The years have been kind to her. Despite the fact she's on the other side of 60, her auburn hair shows just a hint of gray, a few laugh lines, as my mother refers to wrinkles, around her eyes. Remember, Izzy, your family and family members don't use such formalities with one another. Call me Reagan. Thank you, Reagan. She beams, then turns to Jesse. He leans down, his 6'3" frame dwarfing hers by over a foot. When he kisses her cheek, I can't help but feel the love they share. Well, Reagan steps back. I'm sure you'd both like to freshen up. Dinner won't be ready for about an hour, so take your time. Thanks, Ma. Jessie passes her another smile, then retreats, collecting our bags. Averting my gaze, I follow him toward the stairs, brushing past Asher, hyper-aware of his overwhelming presence so close to me. Just as I'm about to climb the steps, I hesitate. My brain tells me to keep walking, to not look back, that I won't like what I see. But my heart wants something else. As I draw in a deep breath, I steal a glance over my shoulder, locking eyes with Asher. While it probably only lasts a heartbeat or two, it feels longer, the emotions swirling in his chestnut depths, making me want to wrap him in my arms, yet run as far away as I can. A dozen questions seem to be etched in those dark orbs. Why am I here? Why did I ignore his attempts to reach out to me? But the most important one, am I back with Jesse? I'd love nothing more than to give him the answers to all of those and more. To shower him with kisses and convince him he's still the man I want. Tell him he's still the one my arms seek out in the middle of the night, only to be left bereft when I find nothing but a cold pillow. But we're walking a dangerous tightrope as it is. I can't make it more treacherous. With an apologetic smile, I continue up the stairs. The floorboards creak as I follow Jessie down the hallway lined with family photographs. I find comfort in the groaning of wood I once tiptoed around whenever I finally slipped into Jessie's bed in the wee hours of the morning after staying up all night with Asher. He leads me into the room we once shared whenever I came up here, depositing my suitcase on an ottoman at the foot of a queen-sized bed. Don't worry, I'll be sleeping in another room. I just figured you'd want this room since it's the one you're used to. And there's a private bathroom. I stare blankly at the familiar surroundings, still trying to process the past several minutes. You should have everything you need, he continues when I don't respond. But if there's anything missing, let me know. I'll be right next door. He turns, about to close the door behind him. When I finally find my voice, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" He stops and faces me, his brows scrunched. "What do you mean that I'd be here? Why didn't you tell anyone, I repeat?" He shrugs, nonchalant. "I told Grams. I hate how cavalier he seems over the entire scenario. That he didn't think it a big deal to show up out of the blue with his ex-fiancée. Yes, but there are other people here." "Jessie, do you have any idea how uncomfortable it was to stand in that living room with your mother and brother looking at me like I'm not welcome? You know how I feel about that. You know I avoid these kinds of situations for a reason." He approaches, running his hands down my arms in an attempt to appease me, like he always did. "What makes you think you're not welcome?" His voice brims with compassion and adoration. "Of course you are. You're always welcome here." "Then you should have told them." I hiss. "Should have told everyone. This is awkward enough without you making matters worse." "Okay, I'm sorry." He sighs, dropping his hold on me. "I didn't mean for you to feel unwelcome." He runs his fingers through his hair, tugging at it. But, as always, it seems to return to its place. Not a single lock skewed. But I had my reasons. "Izzy, you should know that about me. I don't do anything without having a damn good reason." "And what was this damn good reason?" He chews on his bottom lip, his breathing increasing as he peers at me. With quick steps, he closes the distance between us. The suddenness of it takes me by surprise, and I back up until I hit the wall, nowhere else to go, because I still have trouble talking about you without wanting to break down. He growls, his nostrils flaring. I part my lips, but I don't know how to respond. As quickly as it appears, his frantic demeanor softens and he pulls back, sighing. I guess I didn't want to sit on the phone with Ma and listen to the hope build in her voice. Didn't want to get her hopes up for something I ruined. Figured if I waited until you got here, she'd see for herself there's nothing between us. Not with how uneasy you are around me. Despite any fleeting moments that may have occurred. They're not real. I'm still the guy who broke your heart. Nothing I do or say can erase the past. I have to live with that. The anguish and remorse in his voice is enough to rip out my heart. Jessie. Slowly, I approach him. In a show of comfort I sense he needs. I rest my hand on his chest. He wraps his hand around mine, strengthening our connection. You didn't break my heart. I peer up at him, on the verge of telling him the truth so he'll no longer live with this burden weighing him down. But I doubt the truth will make matters any better. In fact, it'd make them worse. No person wants to learn you left them because you fell in love with someone else. And no person would want to learn you left them because you fell in love with their brother, their own flesh and blood. It's better this way. I still hurt you, I bring my free hand up to his cheek, and he leans into my touch. A spark of something ignites in my core. I drag my body closer to his smooth skin familiar, and right now, with this strange energy surrounding me, I crave familiar. We hurt each other. I remind him, and ourselves. He inhales a shaky breath, nodding as he touches his forehead to mine. I don't want you to carry this blame anymore. Jessie, I implore, please, but Izzy, Ma wants to know how you'd like. The second I hear Asher's voice, I jump back, whirling around to face the doorway. I'd hoped I was fast enough so he wouldn't walk in on us in any sort of compromising position. Your steak cooked, he finishes, words laced with venom as he looks between me and Jessie, then back at me again, his lip curling into a snarl. Medium will be fine, Jessie answers for me. Asher broadens his stance, his stare unnerving me. I asked Izzy, is that how you want your steak? Still medium, like you used to enjoy? Or have you moved on? Tried something different and liked it enough to take a risk on it? My jaw drops, gaze widening as I attempt to come up with a response. This clearly isn't about steak. Out of the corner of my eye, I take a peek at Jessie, whose brows are furrowed, the wheels spinning as he surveys us. His analytical gaze takes inventory of my flushed complexion, my increased breathing, my glossy eyes. Then he turns to Asher, assessing his flared nostrils, tight muscles, narrowed glare, a formidable presence in this small space. Medium is fine, I blurt out in the hopes of ending this standoff and putting to bed any lingering suspicions Jessie may have. Medium it is. There's a bite in Asher's tone. I hope you enjoy the kind of steak everyone else eats. He spins around, his footsteps heavy as he storms away. I'll go talk to him, Jessie says quickly, retreating from me. Jessie, no, you don't have to. I plead, partly because it's not worth it. Partly because I worry what Asher will reveal in his angered state. You're a guest here, my guest. He needs to treat you as such. No, really, it's okay. I rush after him, stepping in front of him. Let it go. Trust me. 9 years may have passed, but I guarantee by morning he'll have left an origami dove outside my door. I playfully nudge him, my lips cracking into a small smile. You know how he can be. Brooding musician and all that. Jessie studies me for a moment, then expels a breath. I don't like him talking to you like that. I don't respond to his statement, looping my arm through his and pulling him back into my room. And so what if you like your steak medium? What's the big deal about trying something new? Taking a risk. It's steak. Not exactly a life-altering decision. I avoid his eyes as I walk to my suitcase and busy myself opening it, searching for my toiletry bag. If he only knew the half of it. Like I said, brooding musician. For a minute, I thought it was some kind of weird code between you two. I keep my head lowered. When he doesn't say anything for what feels like an eternity, I risk a glance at him to see him looking pensively at me. But considering you haven't spoken to each other in years, I don't see how that would be possible. Exactly. I force a smile. Chapter 8. 9 years ago. I stared up at the 2-story white colonial, drawing in a deep breath. A premonition formed in my gut that this was a bad idea, that I shouldn't have taken the initiative and driven up here to surprise Jessie upon his return from spending Christmas in Florida with his parents. Maybe I should have waited to see him until the spring semester began, as we'd agreed. At the very least, I probably should have called him to let him know I'd be here. But after weeks of ignoring him, not giving him any indication I still wanted to be with him, let alone marry him, I didn't know what to say when I finally did see him. A knocking ripped me away from my increasingly tumultuous thoughts, and I flung my gaze to see Asher standing outside the driver's side door. I lowered the window, peering into dark eyes framed with thick lashes. Are you coming? Or are you just going to sit in your car all day? Right. I killed the ignition and grabbed my purse from the passenger seat, opening the door and stepping onto the street. Thanks for meeting me. I trailed off. What? His voice was harsh. Didn't think I would. Considering you've ignored Jessie, I shrank into myself. I'd hoped Asher would be more compassionate, as he always had been toward me. Then again, I wasn't family. Jessie was. When push came to shove, his loyalties would stay with his brother, not me. It's complicated. I argued in my defense. We agreed to take a break from each other. He widened his stance, making his already tall physique appear even more intimidating. As my phone calls to you these past few weeks should indicate, I'm aware. Am I to now assume this break is over? I should have known to expect an interrogation when I'd asked Asher to help. I just hadn't realized it would be this difficult to discuss this with him. It felt wrong. In the 2 years I'd dated Jesse, not once did I talk about our relationship with Asher. He never brought it up either, like it was a permanent elephant in the room we were both content to ignore. To be honest, I don't know. I pushed past him, but he caught up to me easily. If you're still unsure, why did you come? I shrugged as I followed him toward the front door. My mother convinced me it wasn't fair to carry on like this, that I needed to either agree to resolve our differences or walk away. So that's what I'm here to do. I chewed on the inside of my cheek, my shoulders falling. I'm just not sure which path I'll take. When do you plan to figure that out? Jesse's flight is landing soon. I'll know when I look into his eyes. He cocked a brow. His eyes, I nodded. My mother's advice. She said I'd know it's love, that it's worth it. If I looked into his eyes and saw a piece of myself staring back. That's it. You'll look into his eyes and hope it gives you the right answer to a life-altering decision. That about sums it up, I said, climbing up the front porch and coming to a stop by the door, lowering my head. Of course, now that you say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous. He exhaled, his voice softening as the atmosphere shifted from one of friends to something different. Look at me. On a hard swallow. I lifted my eyes to his, time seeming to stand still. If my life were a movie, this would have been the scene where the background faded out and everything happened in slow motion, where the seconds stretched into hours as we connected on a level we never had before. I blinked as I peered into his deep pools. My breathing became ragged, my mouth grew dry, my pulse increased. A warmth spread through me, a sensation of euphoria making me feel like I could fly. Wasn't this how I should have felt when I looked into Jesse's eyes? Why was this happening with Asher he said again, closing the distance between us. Yes, I replied shakily. He raked his gaze over me, studying every breath, every heartbeat, every blink. His lips parted, as if on the cusp of telling me something he'd been keeping locked inside for ages. Then he shook his head, stepping back, the tension breaking. Or perhaps I imagined it was there to begin with. Maybe your mother's right. Maybe one look is all you need. Averting his eyes, he reached into his jacket and grabbed a set of keys, handing them to me. Good luck with whatever you decide. Thanks. I took the keys from him, brushing off my unsettled emotions. I turned toward the door, inserting the key into the lock. The sooner I was alone, the better. Izzy, Asher said once more, and I lifted my head, but didn't meet his stare. Yes, he licked his lips, clearly out of sorts. Yes, I repeated. Then he sighed. I hope you get the answer you need. When he didn't immediately walk away, I chanced a glimpse into his eyes. There was a sadness within I hadn't noticed before, almost like he could sense this may be the last time we'd see each other. Then he turned, making his way down the driveway and back to his car. Once he drove off, I opened the door and slipped into the house, breathing in the familiar scent. It brought back memories of my time with Jesse, cooking together in the kitchen, watching movies on the large projection screen in the backyard, sitting together on the swing on the front porch. From the very beginning, he did everything to make me a priority, to shower me with compassion, admiration, love, hell. He even moved back into his parents' house to save money so we could afford our own place once we were married. I continued past the foyer and into the living room, snapping on the lights to make the house appear more lived in. Checking my watch, I noted that Jesse's flight had just landed, so he'd probably be home within an hour. Heat prickled my skin, my stomach fluttering at the thought. Not out of excitement, more out of nerves, still unsure of the path to take, whether I truly was ready to commit myself to him for the rest of my life, regardless of what I saw in his eyes. With the minutes ticking by, I grabbed a notebook out of my purse and made myself comfortable on the couch, opening to a fresh sheet of paper. I drew a line down the center. On one side, I wrote pros, the other cons. I hoped this would give me the answer I needed. Sadly, the only pro I came up with was that Jesse treated me well. After staring at the page with a grocery list of cons and only one pro for an inordinately long time, I shoved my notebook into my bag, not wanting it to taunt me any further. Falling back onto the couch, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I made a mistake in coming up here. Maybe it was impulsive to jump into my car and barge in on Jesse's life after weeks of no communication. I'd hoped by surrounding myself with memories of us, I'd know what to do. But it only served to confuse me more. I toyed with where my ring sat on my finger, the simple band in stone more like a burden than a symbol of Jesse's love and devotion. I didn't want it to feel like that. I wanted to feel Jesse's love, needed it. Releasing a frustrated groan, I stood, pacing the room. When a framed photo on the mantel caught my eye, I came to an abrupt stop in front of it. To most, it would appear to be an innocent photo commemorating what should have been a joyous event, Jesse's proposal. Grams had wanted to capture the moment and asked us to pose for a photo. At the last minute, she'd ordered Asher to join us. I closed my eyes, trying to return to that day, to experience that same bliss I was sure I had after I'd agreed to marry Jesse. I replayed everything in my mind, watching Jesse lower himself to one knee, gasping when he withdrew a ring box and presented it to me, Jesse fumbling over his words as he asked me to marry him. There was no elaborate speech or declaration of love, but those things didn't matter to me. I squeezed my eyes tighter, attempting to remember. Most women could probably recall every detail of the moment the love of their life proposed. For me, it was a blur, apart from the fact that I now wore a ring. But as I forced myself back in time, another memory returned to the surface. Asher's eyes studying me, begging me to say no. Jesse had asked me to be his wife. Yet in the split second before I'd agreed, I'd sought out Asher's gaze. Not Jesse's. Worse, in that heartbeat, I'd wished it were Asher on one knee, not Jesse. I flung my eyes open, gasping for air as the truth hit me with the force of a freight train. I couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't think. It wasn't true. I would have realized it much earlier if it were, wouldn't I? This was merely the result of my relationship with Jesse being in limbo this past month. But as I floated my eyes back to the photograph, to Asher's image, to the way he peered upon me with sadness and adoration, I couldn't avoid the truth. I loved Asher. I loved our easy conversations. I loved the hours I spent listening to him strum his guitar as we stayed up and watched the sunrise over the lake together. I loved the way he always looked at me, as if I were the only woman in the world. The sound of the door opening startled me, and I jumped, darting my gaze toward the entryway, my heart thundering in my chest. What should I say to Jesse? I had to tell him something. He noticed whenever I was a bit off, and I was more than a bit off. I was petrified. Suddenly, giggling interspersed with moans filtered into the room. I froze, staring as the man I was supposed to marry kissed another woman. And not just any other woman. Candace, his ex who never seemed to understand they'd broken up. I should have been upset, should have been heartbroken. And I was, but not because of Jesse, because of Asher. Because I'd somehow fallen in love with Asher while dating his brother. Because I'd fallen in love with a man I could never have. Consumed by my thoughts. I didn't realize my grip on the photo loosened until it crashed to the floor, the glass shattering. Jesse tore away from Candace, searching the space until his gaze fell on me. His complexion paled, eyes widening. Izzy. Panic overtook him as he rushed to me, his shoes crunching against the glass. I looked at the photo. The irony that I was posed between these two brothers in the picture wasn't lost on me. How had I allowed myself to fall for both of them, to come between them? He dropped to his knees, not caring about the shards of glass cutting into his skin. The stench of alcohol was strong as I met his eyes. In that moment, my heart broke for him, for what I did to him, for how my heart betrayed him. Should he have sought comfort in another woman's arms? Of course not. But I didn't believe he'd intentionally do that to hurt me. I knew the type of person Candace was calculating, vindictive, manipulative. Asher had repeatedly reached out to me over the past month, telling me Jesse was in a bad place after our break. Now I saw it. It didn't help that he'd probably consumed more than enough alcohol tonight to impair his judgment. As I peered at him, the anguish covering him made me reconsider this course of action. But how could I stay with him when his brother owned a piece of my heart if Asher weren't a part of his everyday life? Maybe things would have been different. I could have immersed myself in our relationship, pushed all memories of Asher from my brain, forcing my heart to only think of Jesse. But that would never be possible when I'd see him at dinner every Sunday night, when he'd stand next to Jesse as we said our vows to each other, with shaky hands. I slid the ring off my finger, holding it out to him, tears falling from my eyes. But I wasn't crying for Jesse. I was crying because of everything else I was about to lose. "No," he slurred. "Please, I'm not." He tugged at his hair, making him look unkempt and desperate. A man at the end of his rope. "I'm not thinking clearly. I haven't been able to since you left. Fuck, I didn't even notice your car was parked out front. That's how off I am. Please, Izzy, let's just try again." I shook my head, my voice trembling. I can't do that. Now that I realized my feelings for Asher, I couldn't wear Jesse's ring. Couldn't go to his bed without wondering what it would be like to be with Asher. Couldn't savor his touch without wishing it were Asher's calloused fingers skating over my skin instead. His sobs echoed as Candace looked on with smug satisfaction, probably thinking she'd won, that he'd chosen her over me, something she'd been hoping for since the first time we'd met. But there was no winner or loser in this game. I brushed by him and collected my purse. Just as I was about to push my way past Candace, I paused, glancing back at Jesse's broken frame, his eyes pleading with me. I would have given anything to go to him and offer him the comfort he deserved. He didn't deserve this, neither one of us did. But there would be other girls. He only had one brother. "I'm sorry." I held his gaze a moment longer. Then I walked away, with no intention of seeing him again, or Asher.